Bienvenidos to Season 3 of Humans in Accounting podcast. In a world full of AI, automation, and endless workflows, we pause for a moment to focus on the real humans behind the numbers. Founders, leaders, humans share their journey, what drives them, and the moments that shape their path. Because behind every balance sheet, there's always a story worth telling. Humans in Accounting is brought to you by South Offices. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Humans in Accounting, where leaders, humans, and people share their story behind their spreadsheets. I'm Alex Roman, and this podcast is brought to you by South Offices that they're connecting talent across borders. And today, I'm super excited just to have Mike Payne as a guest. Mike is now the Chief Growth Officer at Haga Kommer. He's a friend of mine. We've met, a few years ago, and I'm super happy that he is here in Humans in Accounting. Mike, how are you doing? How's life? How's your Thursday?
Alex, I'm good, brother. Thank you for having me on. This is awesome. I like the show. You guys keep it light and fun, and these are the type of podcasts that are easy to listen to. So, good week. Just in the grind as we all are.
Exactly. Thank you for joining. I was having here some notes, and I was trying to remember how we met. And I remember. Do you know when was the exact time that we met? I have this. I know my version, but I don't know if you remember me. When was the first time for you?
I think it was Connect, and I'm pretty sure
It was not. It was not.
Scottsdazzle. It was Scottsdazzle.
It was Scottsdazzle, but
and I think we were like in a club or like a nightclub or something fun like that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Probably that was the second night, but the first time that for me that I had this that I remember for sure, and I remember you. I was in the back of your truck, and we were going to this ATVs.
Yes.
Is it ATV? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that we were ordering like some Ubers, and you said, "Hey, I have some space. Do you want to jump in?" So I jumped in, and I didn't know you back then, and we went to ATVs. It was the first time for me. I remember the instructor. He said he divided us in like 4 groups from expert to, and I really remember the last group was, this is my first time. I'm super afraid I'm gonna die. So I just went with that group because it was my first time, and since the instructor said so many times that the word death and dying on the ATV, I said, yeah, I'm gonna go with that one. And yeah, I remember that was the first time I met you, and then and a few other events. And now, a few years later, you're here in Humans in Accounting. So super happy just to have you, Mike.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Casey was with us on that car ride. And there's a couple other people that have become good friends. I'm trying to remember who it was, but yeah, that was a good time. I do remember that now.
I think it was, I don't know if maybe Casey was there as well. But yeah, we had fun. And yeah, now you're here in this show. Again, as you probably know by now, I started this a few years ago with the objective of just not to talk a lot of AI and talk a little bit more about the human side. And I know for a fact that you are a human and that you are in accounting. So yeah, I would really like just to ask you so many questions. But let's start from the beginning. Everyone knows you, but for people watching this in the future and maybe who does not know you, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you started? I want to ask you about that.
Yeah, Alex. So I'm born and raised in Arizona, got my accounting degree. I initially started in business. I wanted to be a business owner. I didn't know what I wanted to do exactly. Somebody convinced me, if you're going to get a business administration degree, you might as well just do accounting because you'll get the same background, but you'll get additional skills that will help you as a business owner. So I thought that made sense. never intended to be an accountant, really. I just wanted the background. And then progressed through there. I ended up working at a tax firm, did some bookkeeping for my dad's farm and for a law firm, switched to a tax firm my junior year of college, ended up staying there for 4 years while I finished college and while I started law school. Got my CPA license. Then I got my law degree a couple years later. Started working at a mid-size law firm doing corporate M&A, tax, nonprofit law, and then switched over to Ernst & Young, where I specialized in nonprofits. I was there for about 7 years. I was approaching senior manager, and I decided that there was a lot of administrative red tape stuff that I didn't really care about, and I was kind of losing interest in serving the big institutional clients. I was more drawn towards the phone calls I was getting on my cell phone, which were small businesses, friends and family at first, and then referrals from friends and family until the point where, I was kind of feeding all of my friends these referrals. And finally I decided, hey, you know what, if I started taking these calls, I might actually have a business to do here. And so
Right.
on the flip side, I was getting phone calls from recruiters all the time that said, hey, got this great opportunity for you. I was getting 3 or 4 of those a week, and I just decided, hey, I don't see a lot of risk in starting a business. It sounds like I'm going to have a job either way. So jumped off. I started a CPA firm and a law firm, ran those side by side for a few years, and then the Arizona changed its laws and allowed us to basically partner up lawyers and non-lawyers in the same firm. And so we ran a tax and accounting and law firm, and then just recently got acquired in the end of 2025 by a
Well, all
larger
right.
firm.
I have like so many questions on everything you said, and it's interesting because in my personal case, for me, it happened the other way around. I started actually accounting, and a boss that I had back then, he told me, "Hey, I think it would be better if you studied business because of how you are. Accounting, it's not a lot with your personality, Alex." So I ended up studying business. So that's funny that it happened the other way around in my case. But hold on. So you finished the accounting. You finished a CPA, and then why you studied law as well. I
Yeah,
want to
so
know that.
I actually had a guy growing up who was a CPA and a lawyer. He never practiced. All he did was he was a home builder. He did very well. I sat down with him and he basically told me, look, you need to be educated before you run a business. And if you can learn the business side, which is, accounting is the language of business, and if you can learn the legal side to protect yourself, you're going to have, you're going to be a step ahead. And that way, when you work with accountants and lawyers in your business, they won't be able to take advantage of you. You're already going to know, you'll have a better basic understanding of what the laws are and what tax deductions are available and how to do your books, how to read your financials. And so I thought that was good advice. At the same time, when I graduated from accounting, it was the middle of the recession in the US. And so there weren't a lot of the jobs I wanted weren't available. And so I had a professor who basically said, hey, why don't you consider going to law school? And you can stay in tax if you want, but it'll open a lot of doors for you. And that was good advice. It was back when I was young and had brain cells. I don't think I could pass law school right now. I feel like the older I get, the dumber I get, but you still have enough brain power to where we can run a business. But I don't feel like I could do the CPA exams or the bar exam again. I just never want to touch that stuff again.
Whoa, whoa, and this is a question. I don't know. Like, once you're a lawyer, do you need just to have like accountants, like a CP, that like those credits? You need just to renew something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Similar to accounting, we've got 15 credits per year for accounting. It's basically 40 credits a year. So
Well, that's super interesting. I didn't know that. It's incredible. Well, this professor and also this other person who told you that it would be smart just to have 2 degrees. Maybe if you were talking with someone else who was I don't know, a professional baseball player, he would have told you, "Hey, you gotta be a baseball player," and you would be in another podcast called "Humans in Baseball," but you're not. Okay, and then let me ask you. I want to know if there was like a specific time of your career. What was there something that happened? I know that you worked on big fours and other companies. was there an inflection point or something that happened that you said, hey, hold on, I think that now it's a good timing just to open my firm, something specific, or I want to go back yeah to that point.
Yeah, actually, yeah, there was a point where I kind of had decided like, okay, this is not going to be a fit for me. And it actually what happened was there was a supervisor I worked for. I was doing my year-end review, and this person told me I kind of pitched, the successes I had during the year in terms of client work, and actually I was a young like a senior accountant. I brought in 2 clients worth like I don't know $80,000. I thought that was good. And this person basically told me, well, that's a fluke. That's not going to happen again. And so I decided, kind of like you, I don't think you and I have traditional accountant personalities, I'd say. And so I kind of saw that as, well, they're looking for a traditional accountant here. I'm more inclined towards people and relationships, which lends towards sales generally and business development. And I didn't see the opportunity to utilize my strengths in that environment. So I decided, I've never done any sales. I've never done any business development formally, but I'm about to get a crash course in it. So I jumped in and I left that firm with 0 clients. By the end of the first week on my own, I had 4 clients that it basically replaced my salary for the first year. It was wild.
So really, after that conversation that you had with that supervisor, like what I mean, you just knew that, all right, this is the KPI, the indicator that I needed just to have in order just to jump and do this by myself.
It was more of like resentment that I built up and decided like, I'm going to go prove that. I'm going to go prove them wrong. And I did it.
Right. And you did it without having like one client, without a or you were already helping.
No, I wasn't doing any. I was just doing some free work for friends and family at the time. And so I finally, I was getting a lot of calls, like I said, and instead of referring them on to my friends, I finally decided, that I was getting the calls and they would always be like, hey, I know that you aren't doing this work, but who can you introduce me to? And finally, I just started saying, actually, I just started an LLC and I am doing this work. And so that's how I picked up clients, was just the phone calls were already coming in to where it was kind of a no-brainer for me.
Right. Do you remember that first client? Was it
Yeah,
someone? Yeah. Well,
still one of the most
who was?
memorable clients that I've ever worked with. We
Really?
had, yeah, huge nonprofit, $100 million nonprofit, and was referred to me by a client that I had at Big Four, introducing me as a specialized nonprofit attorney, which, is fair. We had done a lot of work on, huge foundations and charities. And so that's still one of my specialties. And so I was able to serve as nonprofit general counsel for that client, as well as doing their tax work. So, and, lots of cool stories, a lot of progress, a lot of lessons learned with that client for sure.
Well, incredible. During your time working in a big four, what are the things besides what you just told me? Like, what were the things that maybe you thought, hey, this is something cool that big companies are doing, something that you learned from them, but at the same time, and also maybe another question: what are the things that you thought that, hey, hold on, when I have my own firm, my own business, I'm going to be doing this differently?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because there's a lot of things that like I just thought were a waste of time when I was at the Big Four,
Right.
and then metrics like utilization and then ROCA, routine on call advice. All of these kind of like acronyms and metrics we had. That once I started to scale my firm, it didn't really matter when I was solo. I was like, I can just simplify this and get rid of all of that garbage administrative work.
Right.
Then once you start to grow and scale, you're like, oh, I see why they had that in place. That actually makes sense. I actually do need that information to make decisions. And so kind of had to eat my words a little bit back then and decided, there are some things that there's a reason that the way they're structured works. And you need that accountability and reporting to be able to understand how your business is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that only when you're at that stage you realize, hey, hold on, yeah, I guess this was important. Mike, I have to ask you this question that I ask every single guest. You're not going to be the exception. It's basically for my information. I'm just keeping track of every single guest, and I'm going to ask, what's your favorite food? I need to know what's your favorite food. You cannot tell me three options. You just need to tell me one.
There's only one option. That's breakfast burritos. Yeah, breakfast burritos are they're God's complete meal. You've got every major food group represented. You've got all the protein you want. You can scale down the carbs if you want, and you can put anything in it and wrap it up in whatever material you want. Call it a breakfast burrito, and it is an amazing meal.
Okay, hold on. I am not American, but I know like this in English in order just to have this conversation, and hopefully you understand me. When you're saying breakfast burritos, is it just like a burrito that you're gonna have for breakfast, or is there something else that I don't know?
No, that's basically it. It's pretty self-descriptive. So ideal breakfast burrito for me is eggs, bacon, sausage, ham, potatoes, cheese, onions, tomatoes, kind of a pico de gallo situation. Muy satisfacto. Muy rico.
Okay. But and all that inside a burrito, but
Inside
again,
a tortilla.
all that inside a tortilla,
a giant
exactly.
tortilla with some nice green salsa on it, maybe some jalapenos, depending on how spicy you want to be.
Okay, perfect. But hold on, if you're having that exact same burrito in lunch, then it's not I mean, you prefer it in breakfast, and that's why you said a breakfast burrito.
If there's eggs in it, it's a breakfast burrito. That's my take. Which I know. I've been to Argentina. I know you guys put eggs on hamburgers, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
But in the U.S., if there's eggs on it, generally we consider it to be a breakfast food.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could have breakfast for not breakfast. You could have one of those for dinner with eggs, and
that's the beauty. You could have it for any meal, and I often do.
Okay, perfect. You mentioned, and I do know for a fact that you've been here to Argentina. When was this? What
2015. I went down. The Big Four I worked at had a group down there that was helping us with nonprofit taxes, and so I went down for 2 weeks and I did some training, and absolutely loved everything about my experience. It was a blast. I liked speaking Spanish. You and I were talking before this podcast about Spanish. I always try to speak Spanish when I talk to you, and that was a cool opportunity. First time I had ever been in a Spanish speaking country for more than a few days, and I was able to practice a lot, and different dialect obviously than where I'm used to, is kind of Mexican Spanish, but absolutely beautiful language.
And I know for a fact that you have a really good Spanish. Yeah, as you said, we were having a conversation like this one, but in Spanish before. Obviously, you didn't learn Spanish in only those 2 weeks here in Argentina. You learned this before university, high school.
I grew up. I took every Spanish class I could from 7th grade through college. Actually, I was one class short of a minor in Spanish. But on top of that, I worked for a farm. We worked with Hispanics, and my dad speaks Spanish, all my brothers, all my aunts and uncles. My grandma was born in Mexico, so I have a lot of connections with the Spanish-speaking community.
Okay. And during those two weeks, I know it's not a lot of time, but what was maybe the thing that you remember that you liked the most about? You were only in Buenos Aires, right? Here in Buenos Aires?
Yes, Buenos Aires, yeah. I would say chimichurri. I would say beef steak. The food was amazing. The people were so fun, so different culturally. You guys start the day at like 10, work till 7, and then have dinner at 10 p.m., which is wild. And by 10 p.m. I'm in bed, and I have my first meal at like 5 a.m. most days. So just different world.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I think that we Argentinians, we do like many things really good, but that's one of the things that I am not super fan, and I think you guys like found like a better way. Like I don't think it's the best idea just to have dinner as we have. I'll tell the audience here in Argentina we have dinner. Yeah, as you said, 9, 10. But if it's a Saturday or if it's a Friday and you're going out to a restaurant, you can go at 11 or even at midnight. You're gonna find restaurants open. I don't know. That's the way we do it. And I think it's much better the way whenever I go to the States, I'm super happy just to have dinner at like 6. I don't know. I think that's something. And then wake up really early in the morning. I don't know. Here, for instance, now I'm old, but also if you go dancing here, like you finish, I don't know, like 6, 7 a.m. in the morning. I'm pretty sure that's the way they still do it. It makes no sense, at least for me. It's better just to finish earlier and tomorrow enjoy the day. One question that I have, because I'm pretty sure that I saw on a LinkedIn post. You also travel big. I don't know. I don't remember the country, but as you were mentioning this experience in Argentina, you mentioned you travel a lot, or you traveled as well to other countries as well, right? You had
Yeah,
a experience.
I actually lived in Ukraine for 2 years,
Exactly.
where I learned Russian fluently. And this was when I was just right after high school. I lived there. I did a church mission, and it was just kind of a service opportunity, and lived there for 2 years. Spoke Russian. In our program, we were encouraged to speak Russian even at home with our roommates, and not speak English at all. So it's a full immersion. Best way to learn a language. And so even though I was living primarily, I had some Russian roommates, but for the most part, I was living with other Americans. But they wouldn't speak English to me unless it was for the purpose of translating something. But I would carry around, this was before cell phones. I didn't even have a cell phone at the time. This was '02. But I would I would carry a dictionary about that thick, about 2 inches thick, in my pocket. And every time I heard a word I didn't recognize, I would look it up and then write it down and try to remember.
Oh, incredible! In
Fun.
that case, yes. I mean, the first day you arrived to Ukraine, you didn't know any Russian at all, I guess, right?
I had spent 12 weeks in a training center before that, learning Russian
Okay.
and just kind of doing Bible study. And then, once they send you over there with a group of other Americans who barely speak any basic Russian, and you've got to navigate the airport, you've got to navigate customs, you've got to navigate the taxi. Like, you got to get to some address, and this was before Google Maps or cell phones or Google Translate. And so we're just doing our best to say, give me to downtown Kiev, here's the address. And they're like, this is how many grivna it's going to be. I'm like, what's a grivna? They're like, and they're like, I don't know how many dollars. I give them like a $50 bill, and they look at me like, okay, cool. Like, let's roll.
Okay. Well, so this was done before you got your degree in accounting, right?
Yeah, this was right after high school, before I even started college.
Okay. Okay. Well, incredible. Never been to Ukraine. Never been
You
to
don't want to go right
Russia.
now. They are in the middle.
Yeah, I heard it's not the best timing
No,
right now.
no, but Ukraine's doing some amazing things over there in terms of, hopefully putting enough pressure on Russia to end the war. We don't have to get into politics, but I'm hoping they can find peace soon.
I hope that we can all find peace. I don't know. Whenever I hear like countries fighting, like actually fighting, I don't know. It's kind of hard for me just to understand why is there anyone there saying, "Hey, hold on, I think this is completely unnecessary. Let's just talk." But since I'm not doing anything about that, and I'm just having a podcast of humans in accounting, the truth is that I don't complain much. But yeah, for me, it's I don't know. Us as humans, we should need to do something about this. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, let's go back to your business. I want to ask you, Mike. Now we're in 2026 already. The first semester is over. Incredible. Suddenly now in the next few months, it's going to be Christmas, and the year it's going to be over, and we'll be starting 2027. I'm sure there's someone watching this in the future who's considering opening maybe their maybe they're at a big four, and maybe a supervisor gave them an answer that they didn't want to listen, and they say, hey, hold on, now it's a good time, I want to open my accounting firm. What's a good advice that maybe you can give them nowadays, open and a firm now?
Yeah, lots of advice. I could probably talk about this topic for about a week. I would say first, take advantage of all the resources that are available right now. There was very few resources available when I started my firm, at least that I was aware of. Now you've got all of this whole accounting community that's just giving away free knowledge, and it's incredible. You got podcasts and books and LinkedIn and communities that you can pay for, or there's some free ones. Go just absorb as much as you can of that for take a full calendar quarter, take 6 months, take a year, whatever it takes until you have a really solid understanding of what the potential business models are and how you want to do yours. You've got to understand, like, is your goal to scale and grow an asset, or are you trying to go solo and maximize your profit margin? Are you trying to niche into a specific industry, or are you going to be a generalist, right? How you want to do your pricing? Are you going to do flat fee, hourly, subscription, billing, value-based pricing? Are you going to offer tax, accounting, audit? What are the services, CFO? Are you going to try to partner with other professionals? Like, are you going to buy a firm? Are you going to start a firm? All these questions that you need to kind of structure out and plan ahead. Do all that before you get started. Create the plan, and then it's just a matter of you have clarity. You have your vision. You know where you're trying to go, and then you can just execute it. But if you start out like I did, which was form an LLC and wait for calls to come in, you're going to be on the struggle bus for a while. And I, if I had known what I knew then, I could cut off years of hard lessons learned.
Yes, I agree. But at the same time, sometimes, you have just to leave and be there, and maybe, I don't know, make a mistake. And once you had that mistake, you're going to say, hey, yeah, actually now I've learned. But it's true. It's true what you're saying. Nowadays, there are so many resources. And you mentioned something that I want to do a double click on, because this is something that I was super, super intrigued. And when I started here, I'm kind of new to the accounting industry, but it's true what you're saying. Like, there's so much, there's a community. Like, you can go and talk and with someone who had this experience of building an accounting firm, or their communities, your mentors. And in the accounting industry, I feel like no one is like super, I mean, they're happy sharing information and mistakes that they made, so that future, I don't know, business owners, they don't make the same mistake. What do you think? I mean, do you feel the same way? Do you feel there's this sense of community? I am pretty sure that you do. And do you know why? I always ask this question, and I feel this is something that only happens in the accounting industry, or at least it happens more in the accounting industry than maybe other industries. Do you have an explanation for this, or it's just my imagination?
It's been a really interesting thing to watch, because I've kind of watched it happen. I think a couple things contribute to the accounting world being much more collaborative than other industries. I think number one, there's enough work to go around. The people that are kind of the more outspoken, the influencers in our industry, tend to always promote, raising fees.
Right.
And part of that is, we want to raise fees across the industry. That's good for everybody. I think the other part of it that's not spoken as much is we're worth a lot more than we think we are. We undervalue ourselves. I was talking to an accountant yesterday, and he said his opinion was accountants are cheap. And so we don't, because we make our decisions based on frugality, we assume that our buyers, our clients, our customers are going to make their decisions in the same way. And so we undervalue our services because of that. And I think, that's something that I think we all are just trying to bring the profession up. In reality, if you compare accounting to like lawyers or wealth managers or other professional service providers, and I'm not any of those other things, I'm a lawyer and a CPA, I can tell you that the relationship between an accountant and a client is much more personal this is my perspective, than any other relationship. That's the most sacred relationship. That's the one that is built mostly on trust. And generally, if you're doing a good job, your clients aren't going to leave you. If you are communicating with them, if you're being proactive, if you are responding to their emails and questions, and you're giving them good advice, they're not going to leave. They don't want to switch accountants. That's a pain. And so, everything is kind of centered around this client relationship. And when we're being, if we're not valuing ourselves in that client relationship, I've never had a client. Actually, I had one time. One time, I had a client said, "You need to raise your fees." I've never had that happen since then. I don't expect that what happens very often. But if we don't understand our own value, nobody else is going to understand that for us or promote our value for us.
Only that only client that told you that you have to raise your fees. But yeah, that's I think you nailed it. That's exactly why. Mike, I'm super happy that we made this episode together. What happens if there's someone watching or listening while driving to their house back on a rainy Friday, and they want just to talk to you because they feel that you can help him? What's the best way they can reach out to you, Mike?
Yeah, I would love to talk to anybody that needs help with anything or just wants to chat and connect. LinkedIn is a good way. It's Mike Payne, JDCPA, PAYNE. Or I have a personal website, themikepayne.com. So either one of those, they can get a hold of me.
Perfect. When we upload this episode, I'll make sure just to tag you, Mike. It was great having you in Humans in Accounting. I hope to probably see you soon. And the next event, I'm gonna probably go to Intuit Connect. Probably if you go, I'll see you there. If not, whenever you return here to to Argentina, I'll get you some. We can share some mates and go for some asado with chimichurri.
Simón, claro que sí. Vámonos pues.
Mike, have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.